From the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Loose on the Lead with Steve Bick and Seth Merrow. Loose on the Lead is sponsored by
Good morning. Welcome to Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in solo this morning. Our co-host Steve Bick was up the ill-fated Kings Plate yesterday. And again, if you weren't tuned in earlier, they had just wild weather up there yesterday. So I think they got to about the fifth race at Woodbine, canceled the rest of the card. But the Kings Plate, some of those undercard stakes are rescheduled for Friday. But our man Bick has been up there doing the radio. He was there yesterday. So I'm solo this morning, but solo only on the host side of things. We have a great show lined up this morning. George Weevil will join us in a few minutes. George got his 1,000th career victory yesterday. A beautiful thief for Bonaventure Stables, one of our friends, Dan Collins and company, owning, and George with the milestone win. So we'll talk about that in a few. We'll be joined by Frank Mirahmadi, a track announcer here at Saratoga, as well as out at Santa Anita. We'll talk about that side of the game as well. And then Jose Santos Jr., who, as I said earlier, revolutionizing the jockey agent game. He has jockeys here, Del Mar, Horseshoe Indy, Remington, Delaware, Monmouth. So it's going to be interesting to talk to Jose Santos Jr. and just get some thoughts. We've had him in before, but a little update on how things are working out there and how the nuts and bolts of the jockey agent game. But happy to be joined at the top of the show. Horge Delgado won the Alabama yesterday with Power Squeeze and went down the winner's circle and said, can he come on over and join us? And we're happy to have him here. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very good. First up, I asked when you sat down, but how is Power Squeeze doing this morning?
She's doing very good. We went there at 5 a.m. She ate everything. Feet top was empty. Like, eyes were bright, ears alert, moving really nice, so everything looks really good on her.
Very good. And you're based out of Monmouth, right? So you shipped in. Is she in the Stakes barn over here?
She's in the receiving barn, just across the street.
Okay. Let's take a look at it. And I pulled up the entire replay of the Alabama here. Power Squeeze is going to be the number 3. Candied, the favorite, will be the number 7. It is going to be a ding-dong battle. I said earlier, I think this is going to go down as one of the most exciting races of the season up here. But when I look at the PPs, what jumps off the page at me is coming into the race yesterday, she had won 5 of her last 7. The 2 she lost were to Torpedo Anna, but they were also at a mile and an eighth. So she had won the shorter races, but a mile and an eighth she was behind Torpedo Anna. Give us some thoughts on the race yesterday, but I'm curious, coming into the race, were you concerned about the mile and a quarter?
No, that was actually what we chose this race. We wanted to go a mile and a quarter or a mile and an eighth. A mile and a quarter look ideal. Every time she runs, every rider that's been on her suggests that the longer she goes, the better she does, the more comfortable she feels in the race. So we figured that a mile and a quarter on a track that she ran before in the Acorn, it was a very good fit. And grade 1, in this case, Torpedo Anna, they announced they weren't going to be here, so everything made sense and paid off,
What was that part of the decision-making plan that Torpedo Anna elected to go the Travers?
We are going to run anyways.
Okay.
We had a plan for the summer, and this race was part of the plan. So, of course, make things better, but we were still coming anyways.
And again, we'll see him coming into the stretch here in a moment. And it winds up the top 2 finishers go a little bit wide, Power Squeeze and Candied. But then it is a battle down the stretch. As a trainer, what were your thoughts as they came down the stretch? And then as they came to the wire, literally ding-dong, head bob, head bob, head bob, and then you win the photo. Talk a little bit about the stretch run yesterday.
When you have a horse like her that comes from the back of the pace, you never, it's hard because you have to overcome stuff during the race. But she always shows that character at the end of the race. She likes to win races. She likes to be there batting with the horses. And you never see that she had control of the race until the wire. So I was a little nervous, but I spoke to Javier and he said, no, I felt like I was going to win the whole race. Like she gave me the confidence. And he felt that when Manny Franco went after him, that actually helped my filly because she likes to fight back. So he felt confident. He said, I'm just going to keep it with her because I know she's going to fight back every time. It happened, it worked in our favor. But that's him that is on the horse. He probably feels, more confident when you're watching. It's so many thoughts that you have in your mind. And, it's one race, 2 minutes, training like, an outfit like mine, 40 horses, you don't get these chances only every 3, 5, 7 months.
Yeah.
So you want to make it when you have the chance and happily work for us.
Did you feel, because under the wire, I thought it was close. Then they showed the replay. I thought, I think you guys. But did you have a feel when they came under the wire?
When they came under the wire, I feel like we won. But then I started listening to people, and I see people from the other band, the Pledges band, celebrate and say maybe they saw something that I didn't see. But then I watched it, and it was very quick decision. I didn't took even 20 seconds to post the winner.
We had the photo here, and I was actually surprised because it was boom, boom, boom. I was surprised by how I would have thought it would have been inches, but you're there by a head. So the photo was actually you had a little more of a margin than I anticipated.
Thank God it was clear, and it wasn't a long wait because those can take some years from you.
It was just a really, really exciting edition of the Alabama, and talk a little bit about what's it like to win a Grade 1, a historic race like the Alabama up here at Saratoga.
Yeah, a lifetime dream. You don't even imagine to be in these kind of races when you start training. I started with 2 horses, claimer horses, back in Florida 2017. They were running for 12.5, 6-250, and you only can watch and dream that someday happened, and someday was yesterday. After 8 years of hard work, 365 days a year, Christmas sacrifices, wedding sacrifices, and birthday sacrifices, and missing a lot of stuff, moments like yesterday, make you feel way better and make you feel, at least for that time of the day, or make you feel like it's worth it. Yeah. And a lot of work. It's just surreal. It's surreal.
Celebration last night?
We have some dinner, but nothing crazy. We have a filly running today, so we have responsibilities and the filly we have to ship today, and we have time for that. By the end of this Monmouth meet, we might have a big dinner or a big lunch, and we celebrate. But right now, Sunday,
back to work.
Back to work.
Yeah. You're based out of Monmouth, right?
I am based in Monmouth and in the winter in Florida, in Gulfstream.
I was going to say, so that's your circuit.
That's my
Florida,
circuit,
New Jersey.
But I love New York, and I love this days like today, and the weather is being really good.
Yeah.
Yesterday, today, and the whole week, it's the passion that people have for the game, for the races, the crowd, and to be part of it and to win makes things way better. But just to be able to participate is enough. It's one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest crowds in the country. And people is super passionate about the racing here.
And really knowledgeable. So after a big race like that, your horse comes back to the winner's circle line, particularly a ding-dong battle like that, the whole crowd erupts. That's to feel great.
It was special, very special. That they were the whole management, racing office, Mr. Barnes, they all being very receptive to us, and they always make things way easier to come and have to say thank you to everybody and thankful to them.
Give us a little bit of your background. How'd you get into the game? How'd you become a trainer?
My father used to train horses when I was a child. And my uncle trained horses also. My grandfather was an owner back in Venezuela. And I moved here dreaming to become a trainer, and it took me a few years to actually start. It didn't make sense at the time because I didn't have the chances and the possibilities and the financial support. But I thought you only live once. It's either now or never. And I started working, and I started by myself, grooming my own horses, walking my own horses, and that was basically all I did back in those days. And I catch attention from some people, and they started helping me, 1 horse here, 2 horses there, claiming horses, and sooner than later, start getting better horses. And I'm hoping that a race like this one can bring me different possibilities and new owners, and I'm always open to train better and more horses. So I'm all in. I want to make it. I want to be in these kind of races more often. I want to, I'm very, very hungry of winning these kind of races.
Certainly, it's going to raise your profile. There's no question about that. And your uncle, Kentucky Derby winner, right?
He won with Mace. He won with Mace. He already had a background. He won multiple classics in the Caribbean and the most important races in my country. And he did well before the Derby. finished second in the Florida Derby, won the Carter. Like he been always trying to go to the, win the big one, and he made it. Now he have few decent horses in his barn. Like that race, like helping to build up, and like he had a horse few weeks ago, Ferocious.
That was a nice big, the debut winner.
The debut winner was
opened a lot of
yeah. So
nice.
They're doing well too. So I'm hoping maybe one day I can catch them.
That gives you like a family goal. I like that. You mentioned liking up here at Saratoga. I pulled up a replay going back a week or so ago. Tiz Purple gets it done for you. Second start of the career. Ran second in the Monmouth debut. Wins in this second start. So Tiz Purple off to a good start to the career. What might be next for Tiz Purple?
She did pretty nice that day, and she's a filly that's been progressing every weekend and with every breeze. After this race, I've been watching like a lot of changes and leaning towards running the spin away.
Okay.
31st, yeah.
All right. Is she still up here, or she go back to Monmouth?
She went back to Monmouth the next day. We based there, and grooms are there for us. Hair groom is there.
Keep an eye on
it. We keep an eye on it. But it's an easy drive, 3 hours and a half in the worst scenario, and the weather helps, and it's been working out like that way. So most likely we're gonna run that race spin away on the 31st. So we'll see how it goes. But you never know.
Very good. And you mentioned today with the Bolton Landing. When I caught up to you yesterday, I said, "You're going to stick around?" And you said, "Yeah, we have a horse tomorrow. I think he's going to get in." You did. It's Obliging in the feature today, the Bolton Landing. We're going to pull up a little replay of Obliging going back to the 1st of June down at Monmouth. This is Obliging getting it done. This was the career debut. Subsequently, up at Woodbine, you tried a little stakes race, ran 5th up there, but in the 3rd career start this afternoon, what are you expecting this afternoon from Obliging?
She's a filly that have tons of talent, and as a 2-year-old, that you have to put them together, and it's a learning process. And with her, a couple of times in the gate, especially in the races, she haven't broke specifically sharp, but we worked for that for this race, and the post position helps a lot. I believe if she breaks clean, for me, she's gonna be a contender. She can win the race because she has enough talent. But this kind of races, you're gonna give an inch bad jump, you're gonna do that. But we worked for that last week. She broke from the gate. She went another time. She worked enough to have a clean break. So the second time she went to Woodbine, she faced a really nice filly for Marcasi Bullet.
And, very nice.
And she was in the middle of the field. She broke in the air, and she couldn't have position, and it wasn't the ideal scenario for her. But I believe the way the race looks today, and we have Ira on, I think we're contended. She's doing really well. In my opinion, she's tough. Like, I don't know how far she can get, but the talent she has is going to take her places. She's very nice filly.
Obliging in today's Bolton Landing gets in off the MTO list. Jorge, we appreciate the visit this morning, and again, congratulations on the nice win yesterday, and good luck this afternoon.
It's my pleasure, and hopefully I can come more often because that means that I'm winning.
Very good. Horge Delgado, again, trainer of Power Squeeze, in a really exciting edition of Alabama yesterday. All right, we'll take a break. George, we will rejoin us. Frank Mirahmadi also in the room. Coming up a little bit later on, Jose Santos Jr. Stay tuned.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you. to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Turn your love of racing into savings with equine discounts through the NTRA. Purchase through equine discounts and receive great savings on well-known brands like John Deere, Sherwin-Williams, Big Ass Fans, Farmers Insurance, and Office Depot. Join thousands of other equine members and support companies that give back to the sport we all love. Call 866-678-4289 or visit equinediscounts.com to start saving today.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow in against solo as Mr. Bick had the trip up to Woodbine this weekend, but it's a jam-packed show nonetheless. Joined now a late edition to the show because it was the end of the day yesterday, the milestone victory. George Weaver, career victory number 1,000, and I went down to the winner's circle and said, come on over. He said, maybe there's turf works, but with the weather situation, no turf work, so happy to have George in the day after. 1,000th career win. George, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Seth.
Talk a little bit about it. We'll watch the stretch run here, and I mentioned earlier it's with our friends at Bonaventure Stables. Beautiful Thief is getting it done in the finale yesterday, and it's this one, a pretty nice victory. What's the chart margin length and a half? So as they get to about the last 16th, you have to feel like, okay, I've got 1,000. Talk a little bit about the feeling as they came down the stretch.
Well, it was quite a stretch. I've been running some live horses, and rains interfere with my plans, and so it'd been a couple of weeks, and it seemed like I was like, man, this 1,000th win's hard to get. But this filly was live. We liked her a lot when she ran at Belmont during the Belmont meet, and she just kind of got tired that day. And I told Javier before the race, like, make sure you save something for the finish, because it looked like last time that maybe, just might have used her a little too early. And he agreed, and he went out there and executed well.
We have the shot here, you holding the sign. That seems to be always the way with jockeys, trainers sitting on those milestone wins. You really got to everybody gets stuck a little bit, but it had to be great to get it done. But also to get that 1,000th career victory up here had to be special.
I was wondering, I've got a maiden claimer in at Monmouth today, and I was like, is this going to be the destiny that it's not going to happen in Saratoga, it's going to happen in Monmouth with a, just a so-so horse? And I was like, well, you just take what you can, take what you can get in this game. But luckily it happened here, and I was glad to do it with Javier, and, great day.
Yeah, it was fun down in the winner's circle afterwards, and as I said, I was happy to have you in after, because we know you had been chasing it for a while. I had Mike McAdam in the other day. You had one in this. I think it was Governor Sam. We'll talk about it in a minute. And he said, that'd be great if he wins that one, because he'll get like two stories done at the same time. I can cover the stake at the 1,000th, and so that would be great. And then that one scratched, but it was fun to see yesterday in the finale. Talk a little bit about, for folks who don't know, how'd you get into the game? How did you become a trainer? And certainly you went through being an assistant with some of the prominent names in the business as well. Just to kind of take us through, the brief history of the career.
Well, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and my mom and dad were race fans. My dad went to the races all the time, and he took our family. I was going to the races in Kentucky since I was a young guy, and I just felt at home at the track all the time. I loved the horses. Anytime I could, I would sneak onto the backside. It's kind of a typical story for somebody. Like, I didn't grow up in the game, but, there's quite a few other trainers I've heard that kind of did the same thing. I just loved the game. I always have. I loved horses, and I've just been attracted to it. And I did go to college for a couple of years, and then I was like, you know what, I need to go to the Hot Walker College and see how that goes. But I got really lucky. I've had so many people who have been a great influence to me, and I worked on some thoroughbred farm outside of Louisville when I was a teenager. And the next year I got on the track, and John Hennig's assistant picked me up. I didn't meet John Hennig right away, but Robbie Rader picked me up, and I was working there as a hot walker. And when I did meet John, I told him I wanted to, that I wanted to learn. I wasn't just here to hot walk horses. And he said, all right, well, I'm going to, we're going to teach you everything you need to know. And, Mark was already assistant for Wayne, and Kieran was in the program, and so the whole family connection there. But it just ended up working out very well. I enjoyed working for Mark. He taught me a lot. For John, he taught me a lot, and then I got a chance to work with, all the guys in the Lucas organization, Todd and Mark and Dallas and Randy Bradshaw and Kieran. So, I just followed the path that was in front of me, and luckily, like I said, some good people helped me, and we got here.
And it's just a great career, obviously, with 1,000 wins. I'll mention that the last year or so has been very good as well. The win at Royal Ascot last year was certainly notable, and then the 1,000th career win. So it has been about kind of a nice last year and a half or so.
Yeah, we had, we set the bar last year as far as earnings and some big races. We had a big year with our 2-year-olds. Obviously, Ascot was a lot of fun. We didn't have any luck in the Breeders' Cup, but we took 3 of those juvenile turf sprinters there, and it's always an accomplishment just to get there. And this year's been good too, except for the little hiccup there with the metformin positive that really kind of was a big scare to me and my family. And it's we've gotten through it. They've pushed it back, and hopefully things will work out in the future. So we'll see.
Well, just briefly, what are your thoughts on that? And do you think your situation has maybe moved things forward for the better? The better, B-E-T-T-E-R, improving things maybe because of you? Have they switched things around and taken a different look, perhaps?
Well, I think that obviously they're not here to wreck people's lives and all that. Just so happens that there's been some serious consequences. It's cost me a lot of lawyer fees, and it's cost me a lot of stress. My family and Cindy and I. You just don't know what's going to happen. You're talking about the possibility of a 2-year ban. But I do believe they're trying to move in the right direction, and they're learning as they go, is what it seems like to me. There have been other, most recently I think Steve Caceres got a gabapentin positive, and the reality is, I don't believe anybody's trying to cheat with these things. It doesn't make sense to me that somebody would try to give their horse something that they know is going to test. So I believe we have a bunch of positive test findings that are insignificant and are not efforts to do something with the horse. So I don't know what needs to be adjusted, but something needs to be adjusted so that it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, it seems funny, and the zero tolerance for the molecule in the swimming pool that they can find in the test seems, and hopefully they're moving in a direction, as you say, they're kind of brand new, they're feeling their way. I think overall it's a good idea. Maybe the implementation over the past couple of years has been, as evidenced by your case, but it was with you, we were all happy that things worked out nicely, certainly. Let's get back to the horses. I asked you when you sat down. We're going to take a look back at the Tyro at Monmouth, and it's Governor Sam. You had Governor Sam in here in the Skidmore, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. You scratched Governor Sam, but you have a nice, talented runner here. What might be next for Governor Sam?
They have a stake at Colonial, sprinting on the turf for 2-year-olds on the 7th of September. We won that race last year with No Name Meds, so we're going to kind of maybe go that same path. There's kind of selected spots that you can take to get us to the Breeders' Cup, and I just didn't want to run them in the Skidmore over a real soft turf, especially considering we were coming back in 13 days after coming back in 15 days. The horse is very talented. He won the race at Monmouth easier than the margin suggested, and we're just excited to have him in the barn. We're looking forward to September 7th at Colonial.
So you're thinking Breeders' Cup, and I guess the game plan, everybody says you kind of work your way back from that when you make the decision.
Right.
Also, I wanted to go back because, again, we're kind of looking back at the career, and I pulled up a race back from 2020. It'll be the Met Mile down at Belmont. It'll be Vekoma, who is a great runner on your resume, and winning the Met Mile, certainly, one of the classics in American racing. Remember Vekoma a little bit, and I'm curious as a trainer, can you see, or is it always just, you never know, the sire he has become? This year with the first-time starters, Vekoma was incredible. But again, remember the career, and did you have any of the foresight that, he'll go on and make some nice runners?
Well, Vekoma was a special horse from the get-go. Steve Venosa broke the horse in Ocala. You know, both he and I picked the horse out at Keeneland, and he was. We're lucky we got him. We got him, I think, for $135,000. He had some vet issues that turned people off, but we took a shot with him, and you know, it panned out. But he was always special. From, you know, Steve told me in June before he came up here, he said, "Oh man, you need to get this horse. This is a good one." And I think he said he could carry the mail. I said, "Okay, I like that. I haven't heard you say that one yet." But no, he was good the whole time. And you know, if you look at his pedigree, he's by a Grade 1 winner, out of a Grade 1 winner. And on the female side, I think you've got Street Sense, you got Mr. Greeley. He, if you think about what he accomplished on the track and his ability and the page, like this is no accident that he's being as good of a stallion as he is. He's supposed to be a good stallion, and he is. And there's a lot of good ones that haven't run yet. I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal start to the year for him, certainly. Talk a little bit about the career, and always ask trainers when they come here, what's it like racing at Saratoga? Because I always say the fans are just so knowledgeable. You get a win up here, it's always kind of special.
Well, we've been racing here at Saratoga now for my whole career in the summer, and Saratoga it's just a special place to win because it's so tough.
Yeah.
You know, the competition here, so many times you feel like you've got a live horse or you've got live horses for this meet, and you enter up and you look in the form and you're like, man, it looks like I'm live, and so is about 4 or 5, 6 other people. You know, the racing's so deep, you know, and it's a little. That's why, like, when you compare it to California racing, it seems like California racing is a little more polarized. There's like 1 or 2 horses, and the rest are, you know, not really a factor. I mean, it's not always the case, but at the end of the day, this is like the toughest racing in the country. It's very tough to win here. You know, your 40 claimers at Belmont and Aqueduct become 20 claimers here. It's just very competitive. Everybody's very competitive, and so, you know, it's that's what makes it so gratifying to win here.
I had Horacio DePaz in the other day, and he said, "Yeah, you know, a few weeks ago I had a horse fit the nice non-winners, or you know, the whatever the condition was." So I thought, I'm in a good spot here. Entries come out, Ways and Means is in the race. Oh, I didn't kind of expect that one to be in there. That's Saratoga, certainly. Just before we let you go, what's a typical day like for you up here?
You know, we get up sometimes between 4 and 4:30. Track up was at 5:30. I've got a great staff. We come in, we've got a set list organized, and we start getting the horses out in their sets and make sure the horses are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then following that, we start organizing the next day to do it all over again. We make entries, contact agents, communicate with owners, and get prepared for the races that afternoon if you've got something in. But it's basically we're making decisions. Well, I've got like 70 horses right now, and so you're making decisions for 70 horses every day. And you know, some days are smoother than others, but it's a pretty active time up here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the owners up here. I think there's likely more interaction with the owner. Well, our friends at Bonaventure. I always say up here is very special for those kind of partnerships. A lot of them typically show up and they're in the paddock, they're in the winner's circle, hopefully. Maybe they visit the horses on the backstretch. So there's a lot of that social aspect that plays into it as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Where are you located? Here.
We've been in barn 63 on the Oklahoma track side for the whole time. I think it used to be the Stacy Hills barn. We're right across from Todd, so you know, if I'm a little light in the pockets, I can go over there and take some of his stuff if I need it. I know he won't mind.
George Weaver, again, career victory number 1,000 yesterday. Congratulations on that. And again, it was a lot of fun with our friends at Bonaventure. But congratulations there. Good luck going forward. Appreciate the visit.
Thank you very much, Seth.
George Weaver. All right, Frank Mirahmadi up next. Stay tuned for that. Jose Santos Jr. shortly after. All of that when Loose on the Lead continues. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes.
In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falbrough. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
As the field turns for home, Mind Frame on the outside is coming after Dornoch, and it's Mind Frame and Dornoch head in head with a furlong left to go. Sierra Leone is closing ground. It's Dornoch hugging the rail. Mind Frame a little erratic, but he's still right there with Dornoch in an absolute thriller. Dornoch and Mind Frame. It will be Dornoch and Luis Saez to win the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga.
There it is, the results of the Belmont Stakes. Belmont at Saratoga just a few weeks back, and Dornoch is the winner. And the call from that from the booth here at Saratoga on historic Saratoga Belmont Stakes, it was our guest, Frank Mirahmadi. Frank, good morning.
Great to see you, Seth.
And I put that up because I wanted some reaction. How did you feel coming into it? How did you feel coming out of it? Your first Triple Crown race call.
Never even been to the Belmont Stakes, so it's beautiful to roll into town and call the Belmont the first time you're on track. So certainly overwhelmingly excited about it. A lot of pressure, of course. I was very lucky that Fox hired me to call it for them as well. A lot of times the track announcer is live, and then there's another announcer on the. I've been the other announcer on numerous occasions. It was nice to know that I had that opportunity. Very thankful to them, and at that point you got to come with it, right? Yeah. And so it was a great race. I was nervous because even every little word, you just want to make sure you don't make any little thing, because I'm very hard on myself, as every announcer should be, by the way. And I felt very good about the call. I've watched it more times than I'd like to admit, but it's one of the great highlights of my life. Let's think about it. I mean, it's an American classic, and to be able to do that and to be entrusted with that opportunity. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, to be an announcer, a track announcer, and get to call one of the Triple Crown races, I'm sure a highlight. And having known you now for a while, it's been great to see the career progression. You're also out at Santa Anita. That weekend, you and I were sitting in one morning doing the Bic radio show, and you gave a heads up, and I'll allow you to do it again. The folks at Santa Anita gave you a couple of days off to come up and be up here because Saratoga is your booth, and so Belmont at Saratoga, you were up here, and it was great. I mean, to their benefit, because their announcer is now calling one of the Triple Crown races, but good on them.
Yeah, but their announcer, they like their announcer right in Arcadia, California, so they were very nice to allow me to do that because I am a year-round employee. And in fact, when George Weaver was talking about those California races, I almost interrupted that interview on behalf of the Santa Anita and all the California horsemen out there. They're not 2-horse races, and if you look at the payoffs, there are a lot of days when there are some huge payoffs. We get a lot of jabs. Of course, we know that Santa Anita today is not the Santa Anita from the 80s. I think that's pretty much true nationwide.
Yeah,
but I was sitting in there listening. I'm like, come on, George. We were just celebrating your 1,000th win yesterday, and I'll be lobbing grenades at the great race place and our sister tracks, Del Mar and Los Alamitos. But that was pretty funny. But I understand what he was trying to say, and certainly it's a pleasure to be here, and it's really great that the people at Santa Anita let me. I work for some cool people. I consider them friends. And so that's what I said. I said, wouldn't you want your friend to call the Belmont Stakes? I've been in sales for a long time. You got to always try to accentuate the positive, and you got to ask for the business. That's what I've always taught when I had sales teams. I said, listen, if you don't ask, you're not going to get anything. You got to go for it. And I did, and they were kind enough. And believe me, it wasn't an immediate yes. But the fact that Fox wanted to use me sealed the deal.
And again, it was fun to have you here for that historic 4 days of Saratoga at Belmont. I was looking at, I think it was the Tim Wilkin Q&A. I think I was looking last night, and you had a great story about being on a call on ESPN in the 2000 Super Derby where they're loading in the gate, and you've had the earpiece, the production earpiece, and I don't think people realize I do because I have the earpiece all the time, but what goes on kind of behind the scenes.
Well, people are just talking in your ear. I did several shows of Saratoga Live years ago and also at Belmont, and I got to get that feeling. I had to host a couple of times. When you're the host, you're really going to get a lot of, they're telling you, hey, by the way, follow what's on the screen. Go here. We're going to this. This is happening. But that was my first time calling a race, Grade 1, and it was Tisnow's Super Derby. And so they gave me an earpiece. The best part was when the earpiece came, it was a very yellow earpiece from some previous users. Which immediately that was my first order of business was I'm a germaphobe to begin with. I didn't really want the yellow earpiece. Yellow's a good color, but not when it's going into your earpiece. So I got that straightened out with a new earpiece, and then they were talking. I mean, they're like the fourth horse is going to the gate. It was Commendable was the Belmont winner, and he was in the race, and all of a sudden. I see this, I hear the guy, roll the Commendable piece. I'm like, roll the Commendable piece? We got 2 horses to load. I took the earpiece, threw that thing as far as I could. I said, listen, they'll know when to turn on the volume for the track. You got to be kidding me. But that's how it is. They have to, and I deal with that now with our show because I have the show in my ear. And there are times in which when the guys are going to right before the start, you can hear a lot of, and sometimes this stuff is not exactly on point because we're having a good time or we're laughing about this and that. And so sometimes I have to turn the volume down and go. But Greg and Lafitte, who are the hosts, do such a great job. They're professionals, and they send it to me. And so we try to have a smooth transition. That's the ideal scenario to kind of have it as though we're a team working together for the same cause.
Yeah, no, I could totally relate with the earpiece. And they're loading in the gate, and you're like, okay, we're ready to go. And they're out there saying, oh, we're going to a taped piece. And like, wait, what? I could totally
Mitch
relate.
Levitas, you know Mitch. Right? Oh, believe me, Mitch in your ear, you better be ready to rock and roll. And it's almost like, it's like shock treatment when you first deal with Mitch in your ear because he's coming at you. He wants to make sure, like, what do you got? We're in New York now. We don't want any California softies. Let's go, buddy boy. No. So we had some tough love early on in our relationship, but we laugh about it to this day. But in the end, he just wants you to be ready and he wants you to be prepared, and that's what he's used to doing. He's worked on big sports broadcasts.
People who don't know Mitch, and you can get it. I will tout you for next year. Go over to the Jockey charity basketball game because Mitch is the caller over there, and he brings it. It's always very
big Marv Albert fan like yours truly. So we get along very well.
For folks who aren't familiar, talk a little bit about because I don't think when you're a kid necessarily you're thinking, I want to grow up and be a race caller. But what was your path to getting into the booth?
My dad loved to gamble, really, and so my guess, and I don't know what the exact thing is, but he liked to take us to the track. It was a good opportunity, family day, and he's at the window firing away, right? So I was at the track at a very, very young age, and I also developed a skill of impersonation, and I don't know exactly how that developed, but at a very young age, I was doing voices, and I often wonder, Seth, because we lived on Oakhurst Drive during a period of time when I was about 10. It was near the time when Seattle Slew went to run at Hollywood Park in the swap stakes after his Triple Crown, and he was defeated by J.O. Tobin. And my brother found a driver's license in the street, and it was a neighbor. And he knocked on the door, and the neighbor happened to be Dawes Butler. Well, Dawes Butler was a legendary comic voiceover guy. He did Yogi Bear, he did Snagglepuss, Mr. Jinx, Captain Crunch, Elroy Jetson, Wally Gator, all these voices. And I don't know this to be true because I was already doing some voices, but I remember that he invited us in. He was so grateful to my brother, and he made us little tapes and with different characters and talking about us and sort of doing all that. And I still remember some of the material in his thing, but the thing that I remember vividly, obviously as you get older, you forget most things that have happened. But the one thing I really remember with Dawes Butler was, I'm looking at this old man leaning in, and he's Yogi Bear or Snagglepuss. I mean, you got to understand, when you look at some old man going into a microphone, the last thing you're expecting to hear is, heavens to Murgatroyd, this is Snagglepuss. So it's like, I think something went off in my brain that, I don't know. But I started imitating track announcers, and then I was in advertising sales, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a doctor, but there was only one issue. I didn't want to go 4 years of school, let alone 8. So it was fun to want to be, everyone wants to be a doctor, but there's little work affiliated with that. So I always wanted to be a doctor. That wasn't going to happen because you need to get a little more education than I did. So eventually I was in sales, and one day I just, I used to imitate announcers at the track. Sometimes before the race I would call it as I thought it would go. And I just picked up the phone on a whim, and I called Hollywood Park, and I got the track president, Don Robbins, on the phone. I said, listen, I can imitate Trevor Denman, who's on vacation. I can imitate the father of the guy who's filling in. It was Gary Henson filling in. His father was the late, great Harry Henson, whom I loved. Gravelly voice, distinct voice. And I said, I think it'd be a great promotion. Would I be wasting my time sending you a tape? He said, I don't know if it's wasting my time, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Well, I went and made a tape for him, sent it to him, kept pushing and pushing, because look, in sales, until they say no, anything's possible. Eventually, he brought me into the press box. I called 2 races in a tape recorder, and then on closing day, 1992, Christmas Eve, he let me call 2 races. Gary Henson was standing next to me, and I always remember Gary, who was such a nice man. First of all, I had to get his permission to do Harry Henson right in front of him, and he said yes, and he loved it. But I remember when I was calling the race with the binoculars, I had like some $39 pair from Radio Shack. I didn't know what kind of binoculars you need. I never called races watching them. I never practiced once. I know that sounds crazy. I used to watch the race, and when you're a kid, you could see pretty far anyway. And I didn't really watch with binoculars. I looked a couple times, and they were sensible. Now I knew I better be watching them. And I knew those horses back and forth. To this day, I know the horses that were in those races. So I remember when I was calling the race, I could see him out of the corner of my eye, peripheral vision. I could see him looking at the program and looking out there. Like he was like, I could tell he was surprised I knew what I was doing. But it was almost like an out-of-body experience. The second call I gave that day was a 4-horse driving finish. And the words I used as Trevor Denman, I'm telling you, I'm a big Trevor Denman fan, knowing bigger, they're probably the words he would have said. And it was insane how that would come out in that moment. And it's safe to say, subsequently, when I eventually filled in at Hialeah, talk about a bounce. I mean, I gave some calls that people were like, who is this guy? And so it's, I remember a lot of, I have all my tapes from 95 that I called 4 days at Hialeah. Those were some very rough moments. I mean, the windows were open there, and I'm lucky some eggs weren't flying in, because there were a lot of like moments of silence during race calls and just, pauses and, just nerves. And I'm, Hialeah, the late John Brunetti gave me my shot at my first job in '96. I'm always grateful to them. If the Red Oak stable is ever running in a race, I'm always rooting for them. I'm not shy to say I root for them forever, and I appreciate them, and I never forget where I came from. And along the way, a lot of people have taken shots with me and given me opportunities, and it's almost like a horse going through your conditions. It's been a very long road to get to Santa Anita, and then to have this is something I could never even dream of. I was here for the first time when I was calling races for the Great Barrington Fair. I borrowed Sam Abbey, who was the racing secretary's truck. He let me come out here, and I came out here with Patrick Mackey, the son of the great Mike Mackey, and we came out to Saratoga. And I remember it vividly when I walked in the first time. It was like an overcast day, but you just looked at him like, wow. I never thought at that point, gee, I'd like to call races in one day. I said, I can't even believe I'm at this place. And there was a great Phipps maiden that won by a block, and I got to look that up, because it was either 97 or 98, one of those 2 years. It was the 6-horse. I wonder if that turned out to be one of their great broodmares. You never know, but it was a first-time starter, and I'm going to go one day and go into because there's only a few weeks that they ran. I got to find out who that was, and I was here for the great 3-way battle in the Travers, with Coronado's Quest on the front end the whole way, and that was a 3-way photo coming. I remember Coronado's Quest was very washy in the post-parade. And I talked to Mike Smith about that later on, and he said he was always like that. He just, he knew. Oh,
he was very, yeah.
He was nuts. So I'm going to gravitate toward a horse like that.
So a storied beginning, certainly, but leading you to Santa Anita and Saratoga, which, for better or worse, has changed. I was going to say your style a little bit. It wasn't really your style, but at the smaller tracks, every once in a while, I picked up on early on. You go to YouTube, and you can probably still find the calls where you're, and again, at some of the smaller tracks, adding to the entertainment value, you would do some impressions, really all. There was one race where you did probably 8 different impressions.
23 I did once at Turf Paradise. It was the Hasta La Vista.
Oh, the marathon.
Yeah, I ended it with a tribute to Luke Kreipos, who was a dear friend of mine and a guy who helped me a lot. And in some of my worst moments, he really helped me, and like, the inquiry sign was flashing on me, and he got me the job on the California fairs, and I'll never forget that either, because he was very close with Larry Swartzlander, who runs the fairs, and he said, listen, Frank just needs blinkers, but he'll take care of business for you, and that was a big turning point in my whole career, because from there I started working on TVG, and everything worked out in the right way during some tough times, and that was thanks to Luke. So when he passed away, they hired me at Turf Paradise. I had filled in I called the All-American Futurity in '99 for Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Hubbard was the guy who let me call the races for the first time at Hollywood Park. And I always wanted to work at Hollywood Park, but his man was Luke, and he was a very loyal guy, and Luke was a legendary race caller. So when the opportunity came, in fact, ironically, it was Gary Henson was ill, and the guy who was, when I was there, and he was at Ruidoso, and when he was ill in 1999, they called me in to call 8 days there, and I called the All-American Futurity, and from there I started filling in at Turf Paradise. So then later on, when the management had changed and such, the opportunity came, they hired me, and the last race was the Hasta La Vista. I did 23 voices. I still am mad at myself. I forgot to do Harry Henson and Gary Henson. There was a section I dedicated to the heaven of race callers, and I didn't get them in, but I feel bad I didn't, but people know where my heart was. I just, I had a list in front of me, and at the end of it, there was so much spit on the table because I was changing voices, and at the end of that call, it's still on YouTube out there, but at the end of that call, I paid tribute to Luke, and I never called another race. I was invited in the past, like when I visited in subsequent years, I said I want to leave that as is, as my last words in Luke's voice, saying, God bless the soul of Luke Greipos. And it was a very touching thing to me, and it was a very appropriate, fitting tribute to a great man who served at Turf Paradise with excellence.
I never met him, but everybody has
great guy, man. Simple guy.
Great things to say.
Just like to have a couple of beers at the end of the day. He would always be laughing, having a good time. Very serious about his work. He was a perfectionist, and he did the work necessary. He was well prepared, very accurate, and not a guy who made the call about himself. He knew what he was doing, which is what every track announcer should do, which is to celebrate the successes of those on the track.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I have to ask, because it was a lot of fun, about 2 months ago. Frank Mirahmadi on The Price is Right. Dishwasher, trip to Hawaii. I wanted to see you do a little Plinko, but unfortunately the guy before you got to play Plinko. But talk a little bit about that experience.
My girlfriend, Jennifer, just got tickets and told me we're going there one day. And I'm like, please don't put me through this. And I tried to get out of it to the very end, even when we were in line, because it was a long thing. I was supposed to have dinner that night with a buddy of mine. But we waited, and it was myself, Jennifer, and our good friend Denise Velazza, who was formerly Denise Mitchell, Shea Leperoux's mom.
Oh, okay.
And great woman, and they're very tight. And her husband Tony and I were on a walk that morning. You wouldn't believe it, but I was on a walk. I said, Tony, you're going to go to this thing? And he's like, nah. I said, I can't. I'm going to try to hit the eject button myself, but I couldn't. And so we go. I go there, and it was the longest line, longest process. But once we got in there. Oh, the best part was I wore sweats and a T-shirt, and she was mad. She said, change your clothes in case they pick you. I go, I don't want to get picked. So we went in there, and they asked you a couple of questions. And we started talking, and I did one impression for them, because my favorite game ever was the cliffhanger. So when I was talking, I said, listen, I've been watching the show since I was a little kid, and my favorite game is, oh-dee-doo-dee, oh-dee-doo-dee. I love that guy, because you have to try to avoid him from going over the edge. The best, by far, my favorite game. And so whatever that was, I guess the people liked what I did. And I was like the second or third guy. They said, come on down. So I missed the first one. Then I won a dishwasher. And then from there I had to play a game called Flip Flop. And it was a trip to Hawaii. And I had to pick the right price. So it was one of 4 choices. But really it was one of 3 choices, because he told me that the one they were showing wasn't it. And I hit it. And it was a great feeling. And they told you to be animated. And I was being animated. And so I was just hoping I didn't go too far over the top. Great experience.
No, it was fun.
If you get on there, you want to win, right?
Yeah. And you walked away. You did
Never been to Hawaii?
No, and I will highly recommend. I was there once when my brother was in the Air Force and stationed out there. Went out for a visit. You will thoroughly enjoy it. Got to wrap it up, but before we wrap it up, you've alluded to it a number of times and done a couple, but I want to hear a little more about Albert.
There is no question, Seth Merrow. The shout-out of the day goes to Big Mike for the emergency ride here after I was stiffed by both Lyft and Uber, canceling the ride after it was. So for all you do, Big Mike, this shout-out is for you.
That could be your second career, because, again, pick up the replay on YouTube. You nail them. A lot of them are horse racing related, but I'm sure you could move out into the broader field as well.
Thank you so much.
That may be
You've been kind to me from day one, Seth. I'm a big fan of yours. You do a great job promoting our sport. I'm very honored to be here. This is hallowed territory, and I do recognize that every day. And when I leave here every day, rest assured I'm like a towel that I've wrung out every ounce of energy, but it's a good tired. It's a fulfilling tired. because I know I've put my heart and soul into it, just
Yeah,
like you do every day.
Known you a long time as well, and happy to have known you throughout the move up, and happy to see you now, Santa Anita and Saratoga. You're doing a great job.
Thank you,
but appreciate the visit this morning.
Thanks a million.
All right, we'll take a break. Jose Santos Jr. revolutionizing the jockey agent game. He's up next. Stay tuned. Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer. Wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up today and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at capitalotb.com.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Welcome back. As promised before the break, joined now by Jose Santos Jr., jockey agent, as I say, revolutionizing the game. We'll hit on that and more. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for coming over. And let's start right out by, I pulled up, and I was looking at your Twitter profile. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, currently what?
9.
8, Jack? Now 9?
9, yep.
Go through the lineup.
Yeah, all right. So here I've got Julian Leperoux. At Del Mar, I work with Raylu Gutierrez. At Indiana, I'm working with Emmanuel Esquivel. At Monmouth, I have Fernando Hara and Christopher Elliott, who's an apprentice. And then at Remington, I've got David Cabrera, Rene Diaz, and Freddie Manrique.
And Fernando Hara, an interesting career in that he was on the New York circuit. I think a lot of folks, certainly my age anyway, or even a little bit younger, remember Fernando up here at Saratoga, winning some big races, and then wound up over, was it Saudi Arabia?
He was in Dubai.
Dubai,
for
a
10
while.
years.
And just relatively recently has come back.
Yeah, he came back in November. Kieran McLaughlin actually hooked us up, which was really awesome of him to do. And
because he used to ride quite a bit for
Right, yeah, he wrote a bunch. And Fernando, actually my dad was an agent before, and the first jockey he ever had was Fernando.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually how I learned to become an agent. I would chart races for my dad, and I loved it so much. I had so much fun. It was the summer my dad was Fernando's agent, and I was like, wow, this is what I want to do in my life. So it's really cool that now I get to work with Fernando.
And that's a good segue into, how'd you get into the jockey agent game? You mentioned your father. Certainly you were involved in the game that way, the Kentucky Derby victory and whatnot as well, but go through the chronology of becoming a jockey's agent.
Yeah, like I said, I was 14 years old. My dad went to Delaware to work with Fernando. They were riding first call for Todd Pletcher, and he didn't really understand how to do the condition books at the time, and he was like, well, if you do that, I'll pay you on the side, and I loved it. I mean, I was eating up with it every time they won a race. I was so excited, and I was like, well, this is really what I want to do. And I would do it in the summertime when I turned 16 at Calder, because I grew up in Miami. So I did that when I was 16 and 17, and I moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And I was over there playing college soccer at Bellarmine University, and it was just too close to the racetrack, so that didn't last too long. But I got a job with a rider named Didier Osorio and Aldo Quinchano. Didier was hooked up by Ricardo Santana. They grew up together over in Panama, and Ricardo. And I've known Ricardo through that same time at Delaware. He was riding at Delaware, so I knew him at that time. And then Nelson Arroyo hooked me up with Aldo Quinchano, and that's where I got my start. That was the winter of 2013. So.
But you mentioned being a teenager, fairly young, and from what I read, summers you do a little jockey agent work when you were as young as 16, although Mom said not the rest
she
of the
did not
year.
like that. Yeah, it was just the summertime. The rest of the year wasn't allowed for sure, which I get.
And as I say, you've kind of revolutionized the jockey game with the number of agents you have and the various venues completely across the country, obviously. Talk a little bit about what was the impetus for, moving into that direction in a way that really no jockey agent has kind of done before, certainly with this number of jockeys.
So my initial business plan, after being an agent for like 3 years, it was really tough to get like a rider going or getting a rider that I could make a lot of money with. It was just difficult. So my original plan was I was going to chart races at all these different racetracks and then send my notes to agents, and they can buy them off of me.
Oh, interesting.
That was my original business plan. And if I did it at enough racetracks and they buy the notes off me, then that was enough to make more money than what I was making at the time. And then COVID happened, and everywhere went online, and all the racetracks I work at currently, I was at one point in my career. Like, I lived in Oklahoma, I lived in Texas, I lived in Iowa, I lived in West Virginia, I lived in Ohio, I lived in Indiana. Like, I spent time at all these places, so when this happened and everything went online, I knew all the people already, and I knew the riders, and it just kind of seemed like the perfect timing. And it started off with 4 riders, and it's gotten up to 6, it's been up to 10, and now it's at 9, it kind of fluctuates. This is the most I've ever had in the summertime. Usually in the wintertime I spread out because more tracks kind of spread out. So hopefully that just means more riders in the winter. But I love it. It's my true passion. It's really what I love to do. I'm competitive, so I love winning horse races, and I love helping people's career. I love feeling like I did something useful, and it's just a really good time.
And for people who don't know the nuts and bolts, some of the additions, some of the subtractions are due to the rules. And for people who maybe aren't familiar, there are rules. Most jurisdictions, you can only have a limited number, 2, maybe 3.
Right.
But you've got jockeys all across the country, so you can go in this jurisdiction, get the 1 or 2, and go over here and get the 1 or 2 as well. But that may lead into the subtraction at some point. One of the jockeys may move to one of the venues where you already have the limit.
For sure, and we've had that happen before. I was Adam Biscuit's agent a while, a guy I really loved representing. The Biscuit, he's a great human, great rider as well, and loved representing him. But unfortunately, the rules in Kentucky, I was committed with Julian and Ray Lou, but we had a really good winner at Turfway, and I was working with Bryson Cox, who's also a very good agent. So, we had a plan. He knew what it was going into the winter, and he was able to prepare for it, and it all worked out. But yeah, I enjoy it.
You mentioned you have Ray Lou. We always root for Ray Lou. I interviewed him a few years ago when he was here, fairly early in the career, but he's a local guy essentially. Started out at the Finger Lakes, was here for a while. Now he's bouncing around. He had the great season, a couple seasons ago down at the fairgrounds. Now he's out in Southern California. How's he doing out there this summer?
Really well. Yeah, we're in 5th place right now in the standings, which is awesome. Yeah, he really didn't enjoy his time at Ellis the last 2 times he rode there. It's really tough on him. You've seen Ray Lou. He's an extremely muscular person.
Yeah.
And there's no way to reduce at Ellis right now. So he had to reduce at home and then drive 2 hours. And he was just tying up a bunch, muscularly. So last summer we tried it over here. It was just a little too deep for us at the moment. And we were looking for something else to do. And I reached out to some people in California, and there was some interest in him. And one thing about Ray is he's going to go and work really hard. So he got out there and he worked hard. He showed up 3 weeks before the meet, and it's really paying off. We've got 10 winners. I believe we ride 4 today. Pretty live horses, and we've gained some nice 2-year-olds out of it. It's been a really good experience.
Good, because he's a fun guy. Like I say, it's easy to root for kind of the local, the hometown. He's upstate, further upstate, but still like to root for him, and he's been fun to watch throughout the career. I was doing some research last night and looking at some written stuff and some interviews you did maybe on YouTube. But you talked about you're not alone necessarily. You have people that are pulling
yeah.
up some data for you and whatnot. Talk
For
about
sure.
the team, so to speak.
Yeah. Right now it's a team of 4, which is awesome. 4 really helpful and really responsible people, and they help me out a bunch. And I need them to be as on top of it as I am, because it's the only way it's going to stay. I try to stay like a couple weeks or a month ahead of time.
Yeah.
So the only way to do that is for everyone to be on the same page. And fortunately, I've got a really good crew behind me, and they're super helpful. I love them to death. They're great people and also really hard workers, so that's awesome. And I make lists of horses that I am interested in, the conditions in which I think that they should be in, and then they write it in a condition book for me, because that's kind of the tedious part that I kind of feel like, I need it done, but it's if I can move on and do things quicker if somebody else is doing that part. And then I also have someone who solely does stake races. So I tell them the stake races I'm interested in. They build out a field for me about 3 weeks before the nominations close, or 2 weeks. And we try to attack it early.
And how many condition books are you looking at on a daily basis?
Let's see how many I got in my phone right now. They're all in my phone.
Because if you're at 7 or 8 different tracks.
Yeah, right now I've got, there's stakes that we go ride and stuff, so you want to know what's going on. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 13 condition books in my phone right now. With meets happening, Churchill's going to start, Keeneland's up.
Oh, right. It's not just the current meet.
Yeah,
You're looking forward 4 weeks or so. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So right now, 13 condition books.
It's, an incredible amount of work. And as I say, you've kind of revolutionized the situation going cross-country. So I could see where you need a team to kind of do the rote stuff that just needs to be done on a daily basis. Also, one of these interviews, because I always like to do the nuts and bolts of the game here for people who are maybe just learning the game. And up at Saratoga, that's a great place to do it. Pull some people in. And in one of the interviews you talked about, and I hadn't really thought about it either. Once you mentioned it, I'm familiar with that, but a lot of people probably don't know about it. But talk about the nuts and bolts of how, what does a jockey get paid, and how does a jockey get paid, and how do you get paid?
Yeah, so the jockeys get paid directly out of the purse from the racetrack. So once it goes official, they get paid their portion of it. If they win the race, it's 10% of the 60%. So just to make it easier, $100,000 race, the winning horse gets $60,000, and the jockey gets 10% of that. So that's $6,000 to the jockey, and then I make 25% across the board, every rider. So whatever they get at the end of the week in their check, 25% of it is my portion for our work.
And the interesting part also is they're not paid by the owner; they're paid by the track.
Right? Yeah, directly from the racetrack. Yeah.
So the track distributes the purse
Yeah, they
money,
all have different purse
give
accounts.
the owner, then they give the jockey, and then you get it from the jockey?
From the jockey,
okay.
Correct. Yep.
All right, and then it's the interview I saw said one of the tracks that I think the host was at. Paid,
it was
unusual.
Hawthorne. Yeah, the rider suggested it, so it was fine with me.
But also you made the very great note, and I owned my own company for a while, and for people to be aware, if you're out freelancing, you have to remember those taxes get taken out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. You're getting the lump sum.
Yes,
Keep in mind, at the end of the year, you don't want to be caught short.
And I'm super lucky to where I grew up on a racetrack, so these are all things that I learned early, and had the time to either decide whether I'm going to pay attention to them or not. So, but I'm very fortunate where I grew up here. I grew up and learned from so many people who are so influential in the game, and kind of got a first-hand seat from a very young age to what it takes to do it correctly, and I just hope that I am.
Yeah, fun to kind of see you doing things a little bit differently, certainly, than has been done. And I think the other jockey agents are maybe looking at that now as a little bit of a model. But we alluded to it earlier. Talk a little bit about your dad in Kentucky Derby. I remember seeing you as a kid running around, Funny Side, and our friends Jack Knowlton and Saratoga. Give some memories to that time of your life.
It was amazing. I mean, everything about it. My dad, I remember the first time he called me about Funny Side. He worked him it was 2 works before his debut. And he worked him, and he called me. He knew I was hooked to horse racing by that point. I was already 7 years old, and it's all I wanted to do. And he called me, and he was like, I just worked the horse I'm going to win the Derby on. So to hear that is super exciting, And then we followed his whole campaign. He rode him the whole way through. So the Holy Bull, we broke from the 13 hole. That was a bit of a disappointment. And then he came back in the Louisiana Derby, I believe. Ran a really good third there. Was moved up to second after Calf Wayne was disqualified. And then he ran second to Empire Maker in the Wood Memorial. And my grandpa was actually with me that day, and he told me after that race, he's like, this horse is going to win the Derby. Like, I know everyone was watching Empire Maker go easy, but Funny Side was really digging in. He's, as we saw his whole career, is just a horse that wasn't going to go down without a fight. So I'll never forget Derby Day. I got out in the seat behind him, and he gets out of the car, and I get out at the same time. I look up at him. He looked like a superhero to me, and he threw on his coat, and he looked over his shoulder. He said, let's go win the Derby. And it was just awesome, you know.
I like that.
But the memories with Funny Side will forever be awesome. I was fortunate enough to where I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for a long time, and it was just an hour drive to go see him over in Lexington. So I got to spend a lot of time with Funny Side, and unfortunately he's passed away now, but the memories will never go anywhere.
You talk about living in Louisville. That was my next question. I know you've been up here most of the meet. I saw you earlier, said we're going to plug you in. You were out of town for a little bit, out of
Del Mar, correct, yes.
But what is your living situation like? Where do you bounce around and wind up as the year progresses?
I live in Miami.
Okay.
I just haven't been there in like 3 months. But that is where I live. Right across the street from Gulfstream, so it's really awesome. All my family's there. It was a move I made recently because my girlfriend got a job in Miami, and I'm kind of everywhere anyway, so it's awesome. She can get her career started, and it's going awesome. We're home every time we're there. She's got a good network of friends as well that she's developed, so we're super happy living over there. For me, I'm going to be going to Louisville from here. I'll leave the Monday after the Travers. I'll go to Monmouth for a morning, then I'm going to go to Parks because Christopher will be riding over there at Parks on Tuesday, and then I'll make my drive to Louisville, spend time in Louisville until about mid-November with trips to New York because Chris is going to be riding in New York once Aqueduct starts. He's a really, really talented apprentice I'm super excited about, so we're going to make the move to the Naira circuit once Monmouth's done, and then I'll get to go home middle of November. Super excited for that. And then, of course, I got to travel around Arkansas, Fairgrounds, coming up to New York, so there'll be some travel in there, but I'll get to spend most of my time.
So you're trying to spend a little time in each of the venues?
My rotation generally is at least once every 3 weeks.
Okay.
You know, try to make a habit of that. That's generally how the condition books work, so I try to time out being there when the next book's going to be there.
And as I say, you've been here the whole month. You just being a guy who travels around to various tracks around the country, reflect on that and how Saratoga fits in the mix nationally.
Yeah, it just kind of worked out. I've been coming here now for 4 years. My dad told me that if I ever wanted to make the jump to being at Saratoga as an agent, to just keep coming, and eventually it's going to happen. And last year, he was right. I was walking on the backside. I was leaving 2 days before, and I was living in Dallas at the time, and I was going to drive back to Dallas. That was my plan, just work out of Dallas. And I got stopped by Julian, and he asked me if I would like to represent him. And I'd asked him before, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't out of the blue. It's something that I've really wanted to pursue. I find Julian to be a phenomenal rider and an even better person, and he's really great to work with. So it was an opportunity that I'd been wanting for a long time, and I'm so glad that I've gotten it. And we've had some really good times. This meet's always tough. We knew that. Of course, we want to do better than what we're doing right now, but hopefully we can finish off strong. I'm really excited about some of the horses we're riding, and I'm excited about the horses we've been working going into Kentucky as well, leaving from here. So that's the good thing about Saratoga. You leave with business so long you're willing to work hard. And, I love being here, and I'm excited to keep winning races here.
Let me ask you, you brought up a minute ago an apprentice. When they go back to New York, you'll bring the apprentice downstate. Mm-hmm. Did you consider Saratoga? Because I always think if a good apprentice up here would be interesting, except for the fact that the jockey colony is so deep up
it's
here.
Very deep, and it's something we would consider, like, hopefully next year when he still has his apprenticeship. You know, if we're doing well enough, and I think we should. I'm really excited about his talents. So if we do well enough going into Saratoga next year, then that would definitely be a goal.
Because you just don't see so many apprentices up here, and I always think if one came up here and it got a little bit on fire, but it's so deep
it just
up
timed
there
up to where he was riding at Lone Star, and that ended the week before Saratoga started. So it just wasn't enough. You know, we wouldn't have known anybody. But he's gone to Monmouth, and he's done phenomenal. He's already won a stake over there.
Excellent.
It was his 6th career win, was a stake race, and he's Stuart Elliott's son, so he's he's got a really good teacher.
Nice.
Yeah,
very good.
So I'm super excited about it.
All right, so we'll look for him on the move downstate in a
Yes,
few
for
weeks
sure.
As well. Really appreciate the visit, and again, I always like to touch on the nuts and bolts, but you're doing it a little bit differently, so that's a nice little spin to it. But again, keep up the great work. Good luck with all the jockeys across the country. And typically we're down in Florida. For this year we were Holy Bull. Normally we're down for the Florida Derby, but maybe we'll have you come over and sit in with us.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, I've never worked the Gulfstream meet, so I'm
really?
just kind of hanging out down there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, if you're across the street,
I'll literally be across the
shoot
street.
the breeze anyway. Or maybe we'll get you for. I like the diner across it. People are always make fun. I'm a diner guy. I like
a block away from my place.
Yeah,
you give me a call. You're on the way. I'll walk there. We'll be able to link up.
Appreciate it. All right. Again, good luck in the remainder of the meet and going forward as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Jose Santos Jr., again, jockey agent, and a little bit of a different twist on it. Thanks to Frank Mirahmadi earlier. That was a lot of fun to have Frank in here. George Weaver, 1,000 career victories with the finale yesterday for our friends at Bonaventure. That was fun. And Horge Delgado, the win yesterday in the Alabama. So without Mr. Bick, who on his way back from Woodbine, I would assume by now, but it was still a jam-packed edition of Loose on the Lead. Don't forget, Pick 3 Bankroll will wind up. That'll close at about noon, and just shortly after that, the Travers Bankroll will open. Go to capitalotv.com, click on the promotions link, and look for the graphics there to sign up for one or both. Sign up for both and see if you can get in the randomly selected teams. I'll be playing the Pick 3 Bankroll a little bit later today. Otherwise, it has stopped raining, so I think we have probably a nice day ahead of us, similar to yesterday, which was overcast all day, but was a nice day up here, and it looks like that may be where we're headed today. So a nice day of racing ahead. Otherwise, back in for morning programming, 9 a.m. for the Handicappers Report on Wednesday, and 10 a.m. for Racing Across America. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.